I would say it's less of a proselytizing sort of mission and more of a, if someone needs help, we help them out. This isn't about going to church on Sunday. This is about showing what we believe in daily life.
Let's be honest. You and I both know someone for whom church is just a moral obligation. But that moral compass can drift pretty egregiously between Sundays. Church for the Bruderhof is just one ingredient in a lifelong commitment to what I personally think is a best of Christianity. Peace, love, honesty, looking out for your neighbor, that kind of thing. Are they perfect? They'll be the first to tell you they're not. But in my own encounters with the Bruderhof, there's nothing performative about the life they lead. About 3,000 people live the Bruderhof life worldwide. And here in the Catskills, there's a community of 240 of them in Greene County's Platte Clove. On today's Catscast, join us for a visit to that community and hear firsthand what defines this communal lifestyle with its roots in World War I Germany. And we'll tackle some honest questions with equally honest answers about topics like marriage, shared possessions, conservative dress, and lots more. In just a moment, come along for a special trip to the Platte Clove Bruderhof community.
This episode is supported by Hanford Mills Museum. Explore the power of the past as knowledgeable staff guide you through the mill with demonstrations of the water wheel, sawmill, and woodworking machines. For more information about scheduling a tour or about their 2024 exploration days, visit hanfordmills.org. And by Briars and Brambles Books, the go-to independent book and gift store in the Catskills. Located in Windham, New York, right next to the pharmacy, just steps away from the Windham Path. Open daily. For more information, visit briarsandbramblesbooks.com or call 518-750-8599.
I'm Milton O'Connell, and we're here at the Platte Clove community in Elka Park on a beautiful May 2nd day.
I'm Daryl Mercer, and I'm happy to be a part of this interview as well. And I live here with my family of 3 kids. And it's a beautiful early May day in the Catskills.
Oh, it's beautiful. This was the New York City police camp until the Bruderhof communities bought it in 1990. In the earlier years of the police camp, everyone I've ever met who was involved only has awesome memories of hiking, swimming. There's a beautiful lake across the valley that was built in the 60s. There was a big pool here right below where we're sitting. There's a big dance hall, which we'll show you in a few minutes over by the school. They just had a great time. And then when we bought it in 1990, there'd been a few years and it was empty. They weren't using it so much. And there was many seasonal bungalows around that were torn down. And then we built more year-round housing and also the small factory. But yeah, most people here love it.
Tell me what you guys do in this community, and how'd you get stuck with me?
Well, I can start. I work part-time in the medical clinic here. It's kind of a family practice office, and we provide just basic medical services for the members of the community, the kids, the elderly. And it's a great place to work, and I enjoy it. And otherwise, I spend time raising my 5 kids and doing stuff with them on the weekends, the evenings. And how do we get stuck with you? I guess Brett contacted through our website, and then we have kind of an outreach director who suggested that we get together and chat a little on a nice spring day, so I guess that's how it worked out.
And Daryl, tell me what you do here.
My role is to make sure all the bills are paid. I kind of work in the financial office and also help with the outreach to our neighborhood. I spend a lot of time in the factory as well.
And the factory here does what?
It's a factory for Riften equipment, and we make equipment for people with disabilities. Our 2 main products here is a specialized seating chair with many different prompts and adjustments, and a stander for kids who can't stand on their own, to get them in a vertical position so they can do activities and participate in daily life.
And everything you do, all of the work, the output from these communities worldwide comes back to the communities. So there's no personal ownership here. Is that right?
So members of this community, we agree to pool all our earnings. Mm-hmm. And then in return, we have this beautiful place, and we eat together. You know, we have our own medical practice, our own daycare, elementary school. So no, each individual is not technically making any money working in the factory, but collectively we're obviously earning our keep. And we also then work together between communities. So each community is not financially separate.
So that diversifies in case, from a financial standpoint, no one community is going to go down.
That's correct.
Yeah. What determines what everybody does? Is it personal choice? Is it what you're good at? Is it assigned? Are there job postings within the community? Interested to know how that works.
In order to make this work, we all agree to do what's needed. But it is definitely somewhat geared to what people are interested in doing and what they're good at, if that makes sense.
Let's say I lived on this community and I want to produce podcasts. You must have a communications division. Who would I speak to? Is there someone who kind of assigns roles, or an employer of sorts that determines who does what?
Yeah, we call them work distributors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure there'd be some sort of communications role that you could jump into. Yeah. We have our own IT department. We have
the publishing house,
which you've been involved with as well. I've always been interested in doing things with my hands and mechanical things. So I worked in the welding shop for years and enjoyed it thoroughly. But it was also a job that needed to get done. Welding up frames for the products.
I mean, as a self-sustaining community, I'm sure that you can pretty much do most of the things that you would do not in the community. There's a need for lots of different skills.
Yeah, for sure. But it also, nobody's interested in making somebody do something that they have no interest in doing. There definitely has to be a little bit of that, but nobody wants to do a job that they don't want to do year after year.
So communal, but not communism.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. Relating to the question of the structure and the financial structure, like Daryl said, it's important to realize the original vision, the intent of setting up the Christian community is based in the Bible, in the book of Acts, where the early Christians, after Jesus Christ returned to heaven, lived together and shared everything and tried to have a society where they helped the poor, they helped the sick, the earnings weren't their own. And that was the intent of the founder of these communities back in 1920. And putting that into practice in the modern age is not easy, but that is the vision for it. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of communication and a lot of going back to say, well, what actually was that original idea,
So Bruderhof isn't a religion, but it's a way to interpret religion, in a sense. Would you say that? Or, I mean, it's based in Christianity, of course, but is there a particular branch of Christianity that you adhere to?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'd say it's the Anabaptist, which is belief in adult baptism. And then I would say as far as Christian practices, it's trying to live out the beliefs and trying to live each day in all that you do to follow Jesus' commands. It's great to go to church on Sunday and do those things. That's awesome, 100%. But we're trying to take it to a level where it also includes real care for our neighbors. And we may not do it perfectly every day, but that's the vision,
Mindful living.
Yeah.
Tell me about the founder and how this came to be in 1920, where and why. What was missing at that time that this filled?
Sure. Abe Hart Arnold was the founder, and he was highly educated, a doctor of theology in the Lutheran Church, and he became I guess, disillusioned with the structure of the church and so forth following World War I, which was obviously a horrible time in history. And through that, he had, a real conversion and decided that the best way to live out the practices of the Bible of the early Christians was in church community. And he started very small in a house in the country. He'd grown up in the city of Berlin, so it was a real change. And he moved there with his wife, and they started this small community. And from there it grew, and then of course World War II came along, and they were pacifists, and were eventually forced out of Germany. It's a longer history, but eventually to England, and then the communities moved to Paraguay. Eberhard himself passed away just before World War II started, but the Bruderhof communities continued.
And today, how many people are affiliated with the Bruderhof communities worldwide and also in this community itself?
In this community itself, there's about 240 people, a lot of children, adults, families, and worldwide it's around 3,000 members on all different continents.
Is there a mission that permeates all of those communities?
I think the goal is, first of all, to follow Jesus each day and to look after each other, to live together in community peacefully with each other, which obviously takes some work. But then certainly the wider goal is also the same goals as any Christian, which is missionizing to people that don't know about Jesus, which is helping those around us in our neighborhoods, hopefully as much or more than the people that we even live with. All those things are things we try to do.
Yeah, we often help out our locality with different needs that come up. I would say it's less of a proselytizing sort of mission and more of if someone needs help, we help them out.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes back to what Milton was saying earlier, that this isn't about going to church on Sunday. This is about showing what we believe in daily life. And we probably don't do a very good job of it, but that's our goal.
If you're not doing a good job of it, who is?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that. If we think we're doing a good job, then we're probably not.
How do you become a member of this community? Are you born into it? Can you come to it? And can you leave it?
Membership is purely voluntary, adult decision. Many of the members were or are born into the community, but certainly not exclusively. And every year there's members that join from off of the community, and it's a free-willing choice that's never pressed on anyone. It's their decision, and it's a lifetime commitment. And there's vows that members take, to the wider church movement, but also committing themselves personally to the life here. If somebody takes those vows and then later in their life things come up and they decide to leave the community or break the vows, that's their choice. Mm-hmm. And it certainly does happen. It's obviously sad for those of us who are here, but you also can't be here if you really don't want to be. And people who make that decision, we try to help them and wish them well in what they're doing. Because, as Daryl was saying, relating to the daily work, what you're doing, if you don't want to do it, it really doesn't work.
And the kids who grow up here are encouraged to make that decision? Do most of them go to college to discover what they want to do and then either return or not? How does that work?
They all go to high school,
mm-hmm.
and each community has a bit of a different setup with the high schools, also depending on what country they are in, etc. And many of them go to college. I don't know the exact statistics, certainly not all. And then somewhere along the line, or after college, or if they're ready to make those vows, and they would stay on the community and would make them.
Justine Mendel is a good case study. She grew up in the Bruderhof community, left, and returned on her own volition. I spoke with her about that later in the day.
My name is Justine Mendel. I live at the Platte Clove Bruderhof community, and most recently I've lived here with my family for about 6 years, but I grew up here as well as a child.
You had the choice to come back to this community, and you did.
Yes.
What do you like most about this lifestyle?
So I left the community when I was 19 years old. I went to the Middle East. I was very passionate about social justice and work for the poor, and I felt like the community was very idealistic and had all these great, ideals and so on, but we weren't actually doing anything for people. And I wanted to get out there and get my hands dirty and work with the poor, and I had a save the world complex, I don't know how else to put it. And I realized very fast that I can't do anything on my own, and that if the team of people that I'm working with is not united, doesn't have a common vision, things just don't work out. And I experienced a lot of gossip and backbiting and undermining and undercutting, which I think is very normal in any workplace. And it was very disturbing to me because I hadn't experienced that before. And I realized that the community is not perfect, and everyone here will tell you that. No one, there's a lot of things wrong because we're very human. We're just normal people, and we mess up every day, but there is the chance to repent and ask for forgiveness and work together and work things out because we're all here for the same reason. And that's something that I didn't find anywhere else.
What's it like to grow up in a place like this and then to come back?
It's a rewarding experience to raise my children in the same place that I was raised, do the same activities, take them on the same hikes. It's a beautiful place. From our property, you can go 360 degrees, you can point and off you go, and there's something to explore, discover, a place to enjoy. So,
what do you do here to contribute to the community in terms of work?
So I've done a lot of different work over the years. I studied history and business and ended up doing a 1-semester course at NYU for paralegal studies. So I've done everything from sales to purchasing to working with our businesses on corporate affairs. Now I am taking a break from that kind of work. Thankfully, I have 4 kids, and I work in our daycare center, I work in our factory, so I've really done a lot of different things up here.
More from Justine in a moment, but first, lunch and a tour of that factory. Not every meal is a communal affair, but lunchtime is an opportunity for families to eat together in a large dining room on the property. Everyone gets the same lunch break, so whether you're in the factory, tending a garden, or sitting in an elementary classroom, this meal draws everyone back for a midday check-in. On this particular afternoon, I joined Milton and his family at one of many long tables for the meal of the day, stir fry. But first, a song, which only I, and maybe some of the younger kids, didn't know how to sing. Milton's family chatted with me over stir-fry about their morning activities and life at Platte Clove. The youngest, dressed in stage makeup, had been portraying a zoo animal in his kindergarten class. After lunch, Milton and Daryl walked me over to that state-of-the-art factory, which was quiet at the moment on the tail end of lunch hour.
So this is kind of the main assembly floor.
Yeah.
A normal day, there's 30 to 40 people working on the assembly floor. You heard at lunch tonight we're doing night shift, so the whole community will come down, all the adults, and will work for an hour. That's often the highlight for everybody because everyone's working together in the same neck of the woods. You can see this is part of a chair. We call it the RAC chair, Riften Activity Chair. This is the large size, and there's two other sizes, medium and small.
Just then, product engineer Andreas Hinke joined us to show off one of the latest products.
How you doing?
Hi.
Andreas is on. He's on the design team.
Nice to meet you.
Product development for Riften. This is our newest product. It's a standing device to help people that can't freestand and can gain strength in their legs. So this one is for kids up to like 4.5 feet tall, and then we're working on making full-sized adult versions as well.
How much product development is there? Are you constantly innovating and trying to create new, expand the line?
Yeah, we have currently 2 full-time teams developing new products, one at the Riften location near Kingston, and then one here. So I've been working since graduating college, and it's 3 of us full-time trying to put this thing out. The engineering side is very fun and applies the things that I learned in school, and then the industry is about as worthy as it gets, making products for people with disabilities. So this product adapts to the user's size. You can adjust the legs longer and these body support systems out. There's a tray here that swings around, and then this entire system can tilt from a lying position. You would put the user in lying on their back, get them situated. There's supports for their head, keep it centered if it's needed. Some lateral supports at the hip or trunk. And then when they're fully secured and safely positioned, you can incline this system up to whatever angle they can tolerate to get partial load bearing on their feet and legs. And then this product has height adjustment with this crank here to get the kids with their feet on the floor for peer-to-peer interaction. There's a lot of activities that are much better in a standing position, so kids that would normally be stuck in a wheelchair all hours of the day can get up in a vertical position and interact with the world much better.
And you were involved in the design of this?
Yeah, I came onto the team after quite a bit of research. We had a general idea of what we were trying to create and the problem we were trying to solve, but then we built many iterations of prototypes and took them into the field, called some schools, said, hey, do you have kids that we can try this out with? We noticed the legs don't go long enough for the users we're targeting. Let's adjust this a little bit. The straps are too short. This is uncomfortable. Let's change the contour in this segment. And then there's a fairly formal process establishing the changes and answering the design questions that we had at the beginning of the project, and then we start sourcing parts and get the supply chain spooled up, build instructions, and get everybody trained on how to put it together. There's hundreds of parts in this assembly, so this was a good 4 or 5 years in the works.
So now it's in full production. How many are you manufacturing?
Right now it's looking at 20-something a week, I think. Yeah, exceeding our expectations on sales volumes. So we're pretty happy with that. And of course, we've got people who've seen the size 2 banging on the door. When can we get the next sizes? It's pretty fun putting users in, improving their quality of life pretty significantly.
And the operating expenses for this community, as you told me before, are split among all the communities. So you're not just reliant on this business. Another community isn't just reliant on what they're doing. It all is pooled together.
Yep.
But this seems like a major component. Riften equipment seems like a big one. And remind me what you do here?
I usually help with the welding. Sometimes I'll do assembly work. All these welded frames that you see have been welded here and powder coated. So this is kind of the welding department. You know, everything is jigged up and pretty easy to make repeatable runs.
This is a pretty specialized product. Do you have competitors out in the world that are doing similar stuff?
Yeah, there's a bunch of competitors.
You're the best?
Of course. What you see here is fabric sewing. Sewing of the different pads that are on there and straps.
Sewing and riveting.
Yeah. Yep. This area, you can see it's mostly like sit-down jobs. Is often like the elderly work in here. They love to contribute as well. You know, often 80-year-olds, sometimes even like early 90-year-olds, they're in here as much as they can. You know, often it's only a couple hours a day, but they love to contribute as well. So that's always cool to see.
What are these devices I'm looking at?
It's a screwdriver. Oh. Yeah, it just puts in a screw. It's a way of doing it without having to.
Got it.
You know, if you expected somebody to hold that thing just right and screw it in, so.
That's staying in the podcast. What is this crazy device? It's a screwdriver. How far and wide does this product go? Do you know? Any sense?
It's the majority is United States, but we ship worldwide. It's about 40% international.
Wow.
The items I make often have the location. If they're going internationally, they have the location, and it's everywhere.
Yeah, Israel, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom.
And this same thing is happening in Riften, obviously. It's called Riften Equipment, so that community is doing the same work. How do you work with them? Is it
very closely?
There's collaboration in what you're producing, what they're producing,
and we
filling orders.
You know, like in the metal fabrication, there's some things that we make which we ship down to them to get used, and vice versa. Same with the factory out in Pennsylvania. You know, we're sending them products to assemble. They send us plastic molded parts. You know, everyone's working together.
And I think I read that you guys aren't tax exempt, right? So are you paying property taxes, or do you know this?
Yeah, we pay property tax. Churches are exempt, so we have our properties actually split up somewhat. So parts that are clearly church, that's tax exempt. But yeah, everything else is taxable. And
so in terms of having a factory here in Greene County, it's a benefit for the county too.
Yeah, that is a bit of a misconception. A lot of people think that we don't, you know, it's a huge area and we don't pay any tax, but we're actually one of the bigger tax providers for the county. And we're happy to contribute because the county is good to us. We should turn that around as well.
We'll dispel more myths about the Bruderhof and stick around for some of my stickier questions.
I don't know how to phrase this.
With Milton, Daryl, and Justine right after this.
Catskills is supported by the Mountain Eagle, covering Delaware, Greene, and Schoharie counties, including brands for the local region such as the Windham Weekly, Schoharie News, Cobleskill Herald, and Catskills Chronicle. For more information, call 518-763-6854 or email mountaineaglenews@gmail.com.
Hey, we've got some exciting news. Catskills was just awarded its 3rd consecutive Chronogrammy for Best Regional Podcast, and we couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for voting, and if this is a show you think your friends would enjoy, spread the word. You can also sign up for our newsletter with behind-the-scenes reporting and bonus material at catscast.com. While you're there, you can rate the show, leave a review, and peruse our growing list of Catskills stories. Back at the Platte Clove community, we dug a little deeper into some of the perceptions and misconceptions from the outside world, and vice versa.
When the outside community sees members from the Bruderhof out in the world, I wouldn't know that you're Bruderhof. You dress like I do, but the women dress differently. Can you talk a little bit about that separation?
Sure. Like I said, the communities first started in Germany in 1920, and in that setting, it was a modest, simple peasant kind of a dress, and that has held through. So the main reason is modesty, sexual purity, and the dress has changed over the years for the women. For a number of years, we were more closely linked with the Hutterites, which is out in the Midwest, and they have a very distinct dress. More recently, the dress has changed somewhat, but still the general feeling is simplicity, modesty.
If a woman wanted to wear jeans, would that be frowned upon?
I'm sure some do. I know some do, when they're hiking or gardening but in general, again, it's something that, if a woman chose to live here, they decided to kind of take that upon themselves, and they want to do it.
Back to Justine for a woman's perspective.
I guess I've dressed this way most of my life, so I'm used to it. And in a way, I think it makes you a stronger person because you're always representing something. People see you and they make assumptions, and maybe those assumptions are wrong, but you don't just walk by and they don't notice you, unless you're in New York City, and then nobody cares.
Yeah, you could do anything in New York City.
Really, no one batted an eye. So that was interesting for me to go to school there for 2.5 years, and occasionally, tourists would stare, but the regular New Yorkers, they just kept moving. So.
Yeah.
I had asked Milton and Daryl about comparisons to Amish dress and to the Amish in general.
A lot of people know about the Amish, and especially the women's dress here is reminiscent of that. What separates you from a community like the Amish or the Mennonites?
It's similar in, like I mentioned, the general branch of Christianity, I feel, is Anabaptist. Those groups also certainly believe in adult baptism, and also, it's a simpler lifestyle. But they are more, they're not a church community. Remember how Daryl was saying we pool our income? That's certainly a big thing that would separate us from them, as far as I know.
There's also many different styles of Amish living. Some are more communal and some are less communal. And we have many good friends in the Amish communities. Good people in many ways. Really believing strongly in what they're doing.
Technology, though, is not something you shy away from. In fact, it seems like you embrace it. I think when I went to the website, there was actually a drone shot of this property. So there's some fun technology happening, and that's not a problem.
Yeah, we use technology. We try to limit it to primarily for our businesses and work. Although, of course, some people, some of us use it for entertainment now and then. But in general, we try not to become too obsessed with it, but we still use it where it makes sense. I think we generally limit like social media and stuff, but we certainly have websites and use computers in our workplaces and phones to communicate, and yeah.
Let's talk about marriage. How do you find a mate? She would have to come from the community, right? Or not necessarily?
A marriage here in the church is between two members. Mm-hmm. If you want to get married to somebody else, I guess that's your choice. You just have to go do it on your own. It wouldn't be a marriage performed here in the church. We have pastors who also help kind of guide the younger people to finding a marriage partner, and it's the goal is to find the other person's heart before the physical uniting. So, and that's ultimately what's going to hold a marriage together, is if you know each other well enough from a spiritual level, I guess you could say.
With the pastor involvement, how much choice does the individual have?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no prearranged marriages.
Mm-hmm. So not to get all mushy, but was there a romantic connection when you met your wife? Is that what led, or was there some kind of more formal process? How does it work?
No, there was definitely a romantic connection, but I didn't just immediately go to her. Mm-hmm. I actually went to the pastor first and talked to him about it, and and it took some time, but then, yeah, in this case, it took a few years. I was going to school, we communicated, and then eventually we were married in 2004.
and now have
5 kids.
5 kids.
Yeah.
But there's no like dating per se and like experimental this and that. It's, you know, certainly encourage the younger people to have self-discipline, and, you know, if it's the right thing, it has to be a lifelong thing.
I don't know how to phrase this. The health of the marriages in this community, is there ever a time when it doesn't work out?
It happens. As members of the church, we're committed to working things out. So if it's broke, you fix it. And that takes a heck of a lot of work day to day. You know, you can't just have a problem with somebody and just kind of keep sweeping it under the rug or just ignoring them, because we live together. You have to sort things out. And that, in the end, builds, you know, more unity, you could call it. And it's the same for marriages. We're all committed to, you know, if we have problems, that we're going to sort it out. And often that will involve, you know, bringing in some advisor or pastor to help.
What misconceptions would you want to dispel? What things have you heard from people who don't know so much about you that you would say, no, that's not right?
I'm sure there's people that look at us and say, this is a very closed off group. People aren't allowed to do what they want. You don't have the freedoms that people have in normal society. And the truth is, yeah, there's something to that. I can't just drive to Niagara Falls tomorrow because it's a nice day and I want to show my kids the falls. But you have to look at the trade-off. On the other hand, what I do have is a beautiful place, people around here who will help me if I should go off the rails, good schools for the kids. I think that if someone doesn't have any understanding of a Christian lifestyle, they would really say, you know, wow, it's crazy, the women dress that way, the men dress that way, you know, what's going on here? But if somebody wants to have more of an understanding of those things, they may understand it more. Of course, they may not. But, you know, everyone isn't going to always accept or appreciate the way that everyone else is living. And so that's also just part of it.
I think one big misconception is that we are somehow ignorant. I've encountered it a lot because of the way we dress. We're sort of seen as a bit backwards, and a lot of people here are very well educated, well read, up on current events, involved in local politics, or, you know, have friends outside of the community and know what's going on in the world and care about what's going on in the world. It's not just about us, you know, living in a beautiful place and raising our kids and burying our heads in the sand.
Tell me a little bit about your interactions with the world outside of the community. You're all free to come and go and volunteer or even just do shopping or going to school outside of the community. What are your biggest disappointments or frustrations with the world outside of this community? It's idyllic here.
Right.
We're surrounded by mountains. There's not another property in sight. You provide for each other. What are some things that just make you shudder about how people live outside of this community? Things that are just, in your eyes, going in the wrong direction?
I would hesitate to answer that because I wouldn't want to sound judgmental of anyone, but for sure obviously the breakdown of society, you know, many kids with only one parent, you know, high rates of divorce and problems on the family levels are very sad, you know, hard to see. And you know, even things like the opioid epidemic, young lives wasted, you know, pursuing nothing. All those things are things that there's a way to prevent that, you know, and it is by working together, by having a belief in a power higher than yourself, by living for something else and pleasure seeking. And yeah, I would wish that for everyone, but like I said, I do not judge anyone because many people are also born into very difficult circumstances, or life happens. Someone who's very successful is killed in a car accident, gets cancer, things happen, and the government, the society doesn't necessarily care for people very well, and but yeah, all those things obviously are disappointing.
What I find most disturbing leaving the community is seeing children's dependence on technology. We have technology here, as you're fully aware. I work on a computer a good part of the day, I have a phone, but for the most part we try and keep our education computer free, screen free as much as possible, because it really doesn't benefit kids, and the statistics regarding social media use and all these things are alarming. And to give children really the chance to grow and develop and become the people that God wants them to be without these influences, I feel is very important. And I think actually a lot of parents are distressed by it, but it's so prevalent in our culture. As a person on your own, as a couple with your kids, how do you fight it? All their friends have phones, all their friends have iPads, so are you the stick in the mud, right? So we have the privilege of being able to raise our kids in an environment where all their friends, everyone they go to school with is in exactly the same boat, and it's not an issue. But I could see how difficult that would be living in regular modern society. I didn't realize how much this place was a part of who I am until I left and, went overseas and saw some very beautiful places. But there's something about the Catskills that, especially in summer, as you know, the colors and it's just so incredibly beautiful. Everything is so vibrant. Like up here, the flowers, I think, has something to do with the altitude. The flowers seem brighter than in the valley, and to be able to just walk out your back door and hike a mountain and get a stunning view is pretty wild. There's very few people who have that privilege. So.
Many thanks to Justine, Milton, Daryl, Andreas, and to the whole Platte Clove community for inviting us in to record. Catscast is a bi-weekly podcast about everything Catskills. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you like the show, please rate and review on the app of your choice. This helps other listeners find us. Discover more at catscast.com. I'm Brett Barry. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Catscast is supported by a generous grant from the Nicholas J. Juriad Family Foundation and by listeners like you. If you'd like to make a donation, you can do so at catscast.com. Thank you.